Peter, Penny, dear friends, I'm absolutely delighted to join all of you this morning for the launch of Conservation International's office in Singapore. And I hope it will become a partnership between the people of Singapore and CI in promoting a culture of men living as part of nature in Southeast Asia. Less than 2 years ago, Enki asked if I could explain Singapore to Peter Seligman as CI was looking for a regional outreach hub. So I thought the best way was to show Peter what we're trying to do here. So one early morning, we took the treetop walk at McRitchie Reservoir. Along the way, on the footpath, a tortoise crossed our way. The park ranger picked it up and showed us a tick stuck on the underside of his tail and explained to us the connections, assuring us at the same time that this tick was interested only in tortoises and not in human beings. He then carefully put the tortoise with the tick attached back to where he picked them up for them to continue on their journey and for us to continue on our journey. It was a pleasant outing which ended with breakfast at the forest station. And there a giant monitor lizard lurked nearby, as curious about us as we were about him. I then arranged for Peter to visit the Botanic Gardens. And I was so pleased to hear that CI's office will be at the Botanic Gardens. A few decades ago, we were not as enamored of the natural environment. Then the priority was on economic development, and that often meant mastering nature. Happily, Minister Mentor Lee Kuan Yew was always concerned that Singapore should be green. In fact, I think he was green before anybody else in the world. And he made sure that everywhere, literally, we planted trees and shrubs. And we had an annual campaign called the Clean and Green campaign. And we became a garden city. As our parks grew, and as we linked our parks, from a garden city, we became a city in the park. In the last 10 years, we've become much more conscious of our natural habitat and the importance of biodiversity on land, along the coastlines, in the water, and up in the air. And looking ahead, I think we'll become a city in the rainforest. Not just the rainforest in Singapore, but the rainforest all around us in Southeast Asia. What is happening here, we hope will eventually spread throughout the region. For this to come about, we must have both economic development and knowledge. It's difficult to give priority to environmental protection when people are still struggling to put food on the table and send their children to school. But with the entire region now taking off economically, the time is now right to see and to promote development in a balanced way. And naturally, Singapore becomes a little experiment for others to study and to draw positive and negative lessons from. Environmental organizations like CI play an important role in seeding ideas and establishing working models which can be replicated. CI's work, such as the Natuna Project, its support of the Coral Triangle Initiative, and its brokering of a debt for nature swap in Indonesia, is already having a very positive influence. But much more needs to be done. This is a struggle between man and nature, a race against time. And this struggle should not be resolved by man conquering nature, because he will only harm himself by doing so, which indeed is already the case in many parts of Southeast Asia. Neither can it be solved by nature conquering man, like what we see in the ruins of Angkor Wat and Chichen Itza. Instead, with the knowledge and the wisdom we have, it should lead to men living in harmony with nature, men living as part of nature. And the wealth and knowledge which development brings should help us create a culture which makes such harmony possible. Creating this harmony is itself a creative process. We need clever ideas based on good science and good economics. If protecting nature is at the expense of development, then there can be no harmony. We must have entrepreneurship which is able to take into account both economic development and the larger social good, and to find ways to harmonize the two. We need well thought out regulatory frameworks which align public and private interests. And corruption is a problem that's got to be combated. We also need entrepreneurs with a public conscience, because laws and regulations alone can never cover all situations. Above all, we need to make living in harmony with nature a part of our moral value system, internalized in each and every individual. Without entrepreneurship in the public, private, and people sectors, we cannot achieve our goals. CI has particular strength in this area, enjoying the support of many well-known entrepreneurs. It is also a deliberate move to launch the Singapore office during this Global Social Innovators Forum. In CI's partnership with the Social Innovation Park, National Zoo, NUS, the Science Centre, and Parks, and the EDB will help the Singapore office launch off quickly. I feel very excited to be part of this launch with Peter, with Rob Walton, with Enki and Cherry, Penny, all the partners, and all of you here. This year, we celebrate the 150th anniversary of the origin of species by Charles Darwin. The co-discoverer of natural selection, Alfred Russel Wallace, drew much of his inspiration from studying Southeast Asia. And this year, there's been a lot of interest in these two great men and how they influence each other and what they were influenced by. Darwin drew much of his inspiration from South America, from the Amazon, from the Galapagos. But he never came to Southeast Asia. Wallace was both in South America and in Southeast Asia, and therefore had a richer base to draw insights from. The Amazonian forest is, of course, much larger in land expanse than the forests of Southeast Asia. But here in Southeast Asia, which is an archipelago of more than 20,000 islands, there is more coastline here in this region, by far, than the rest of the world combined. And because of that, there are similarities with Amazon, but it has its own very distinctive characteristics. And while Wallace was here, he traveled to Malacca, to Sumatra, to Sulawesi and Borneo, all the way to the Moluccas, using Singapore as a base. And it is perhaps right that in preserving his legacy and trying to make it more abundant, Singapore should continue to be a base for such work. Thank you.